So, to talk about the resources that I used, first, I have to backtrack probably 2 years prior because I remember I bought randomly a CSS book. I bought it off like Barnes and Noble. I also got one of those complete zero to hero Udemy courses. I also want to say around that time, that's when one of my coworkers had actually told me about Free Code Camp at the time, and I ran through a portion of the very first section, the responsive web design, but I never finished it. I never finished the book, and I never finished the Udemy course. Around fast forward to like the summer of 2020, I kind of got back into the groove, but around the same time I started house shopping. So once I got home from work, I was either going to a viewing or on Realtor.com looking at listings because, like, as anybody knows, around that time the market was really hot. So learning to code again, it just fell by the wayside. Like I'd pick it up, drop it, pick it up, drop it, pick it up, drop it. It never stuck. All right, fast forward back to June 7th, or more like the end of June, because as soon as I quit my job, I kind of took like a week or two long hiatus. I was also doing Uber Eats momentarily. So I didn't quit my job initially to not work at all. I had been doing Uber Eats since the year prior, and I made pretty decent money. So I was like, I could live off of it. So initially I was doing Uber Eats. So I guess was still learning to code part-time, but it just was a slow spell. And I was like, you know what? I feel like my time is better suited just to use all of my time to learn how to code. So that's when I decided that I wouldn't work at all. So that's where that came from. Around that time, I went back to Free Code Camp. I actually did finish the responsive web design certification. I want to say like June 21st, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. After that, of course, I started doing JavaScript. But I remember I got to the regex section and like I realized I personally wasn't learning. So Free Code Camp, for me, everyone's different. I didn't necessarily learn from Free Code Camp. Like I would get the questions right, but I didn't know it necessarily. So I looked for another resource. I remember I read a bunch of Reddit posts. I was one of those people too, like looking up what's the best this, what's the best that. And I remember I wasted so much time, like literally a month, reading Reddit threads and all of that, what's the best, when I literally could have spent that time just figuring out what the best was for me. But yeah, so I stumbled across a Reddit post and they compared Free Code Camp to the Odin Project. And I was like, what's the Odin Project? So I started to look up the Odin Project, and that's when I discovered it's a YouTuber. His name's Michael White. And he did like monthly progress updates. And like he'd talk about the different projects that he did. And that's really what inspired my YouTube videos. To be honest, I can't remember if I've already said this before in the beginning. I'm making this video in like 5-minute increments because that's the only as long as my video recording software will allow me. So sorry if I repeated myself just now. But anyway, so I watched his videos and just seeing what the Odin Project was about, looking through their curriculum, I was like, you know what, this seems like a good fit for me. So I gave it a try and I was hooked. I remember like they've since changed their curriculum since I went through it, but when I started, they had you put a virtual machine or use a virtual machine on your laptop, and a couple other things like it had you do in the beginning. Then, of course, typical HTML, CSS. At the time, they actually referred you to Free Code Camp. Now that I think about it, that may actually be why I got my responsive web design certification. Now that I think about it, I did so much these past 10 months that it's impossible to keep everything in order because my journey was not linear at all. It was more like a telephone cord, like you go forward, you go backwards, you go forward, you go backwards. So realistically, that's really how it went. But yeah, so regarding the Odin Project, so how the Odin Project is set up, it's a full stack curriculum. You either do Ruby on Rails route or full stack JavaScript. technically it's not a boot camp. Like no one's monitoring it for the most part. It's literally just free open source curriculum for anybody to use it, and you go through it at your own pace. Mind you, like your work isn't graded or anything like that. They do have a Discord channel, so if you want feedback, you can literally post a link to your work, and you can essentially get feedback that you probably would have gotten had you gone to an actual boot camp. So one thing that sets the Odin project apart from Free Code Camp is, like, I remember at the time, Free Code Camp, for every question, you only change like one line. Like all the other code was already there. You just had to change that one line and magic happened. Like it did what it was supposed to do. The Odin project, you start from scratch. Like you're in your code editor. I use Visual Studio Code. And they teach you like from the beginning, like here's HTML commands, here's what they do. Here's like, different things you can build. And like after every, I'd say like 2 or 3 lessons or so, there'd be a project, like make this landing page, make this recipe page, and it would all use the concepts that the lessons that preceded it covered. So as soon as you learn something, you put it in a project. And one thing I really loved about the Odin project was they did not hold your hand. Like it was no change this one line. It's all right, start your code editor from scratch and figure it out, essentially. I hear people talking about your Google skills. So you really learn how to Google with the Odin project because they have a way of their lessons give you just enough to get stuck when you go to work on the project. So it's always something that they don't specifically tell you that like it's intended for you to figure it out or go find it, and then then you can move forward. All right. After HTML, CSS came the JavaScript section. Same thing. Their whole curriculum is pretty much based like this. They'd have like 2 or 3 lessons, then it would be a project, and total, I don't know, 20 projects. I didn't finish the Odin project. By the way, I stopped at the React section. The shopping cart project was where I stopped. I don't know if I intend on finishing it. At the time, it served its purpose, but I kind of now, especially now that I got hired, like I'm probably going to go in a different direction. But I would definitely say I attest the majority of my progress to the Odin project. Like it gave me the ability to be able, I wouldn't say build anything I want, but like at least know how to get started and get pretty far. I will definitely say that, like, you build a lot of projects, and it's not a code along, it's not a video course. Like they give you the lessons, they refer you to YouTube videos, they refer you to blog posts, and then once you have the lessons, they're like, all right, create this folder structure and figure out the rest. Like that's literally how their projects go. They tell you what it's supposed to do. They may give you like a couple hints, but like it's nothing major at all, and you're just supposed to figure it out. So aside from the Odin project, I also simultaneously used a couple Udemy courses. My favorite was John Smilga. If anyone has watched those Free Code Camp videos, they're like 10 hours long. The guy with the really deep voice, that's him. So I'm sure people have seen his videos and didn't even know it. But anyway, he also has those same courses on Udemy, but the free version is on YouTube, but there's way more concepts and projects that are in his paid courses. So I did his HTML, CSS course. I actually finished that Udemy course. Then I took his JavaScript course. I did not finish that one. I probably got like 80% done. And then I also got his React course, which that one I'm probably 60% done, I'd say.